2, 1. We are live and we're back. Did you miss us? It's been a few weeks since we did one of these, but we're back and it's episode 17 of How Do You Solve a Problem with Maria and Gareth. Maria, how are you doing today?
It's really hot in here. It's almost 30 degrees Celsius.
And are you real or are you AI generated, Maria? Is it
No,
really you?
I am. It's really me. Like this hairdo couldn't be AI generated.
Can you believe that we've reached episode number 17 in our never-ending series, ongoing series? Today, what are we going to talk about, Maria? What are we talking about today in our event today?
We're talking about AI because that's all the rage for the last couple of years. But a lot of things have developed since we first talked about AI.
Absolutely. And what we're going to do today in the next half an hour or so, and of course, if you're listening to us live on LinkedIn, you can put any comments that you like directly onto the feed underneath this stream. Just comment on the feed. We'll see the questions popping up. We can answer them in real time. Or if you're listening to this at some point in the future, welcome to the future, you can put comments on the feed and we'll answer those questions in the future. What we're going to do today is give you a bit of an overview of what's out there in terms of AI tools for researchers. No endorsements, no real demonstrations, just so that you can quickly and easily get up to speed with what's known. And a big shout out at the start of this to our good friend Razia Aliani, who does great work on LinkedIn. Follow her. I'll put her link into the feed as well if you want up to the minute information on AI tools. Maria, AI, do you use it? What do you think? Is it helping you on your day-to-day work as a researcher?
It can be helpful, and sometimes it is helpful for tasks, for very minutia, for tasks that require a lot of search, for instance, that is beyond most search engine capabilities right now. The thing is that you can't allocate all of your work to AI and you can't expect it to do everything. You can allocate tasks and then put it all together with a critical look that's more up to my speed.
We're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail in a moment, but basically starting with this slide here, which we took from Razia. Again, big shout out to Razia. If you are looking at doing a task, this is where we think AI really can be an effective tool in your toolbox to help you not just improve the efficiency, but also the quality of the work that you do. And we're going to talk about that in the context of day-to-day tasks that researchers would be doing. But there are many things that we just can't do. And as you can see on the graph on the right-hand side of this slide, there are areas of that conceptual process where you need to have researcher expertise still, even though there are tools that may help you a little bit, right, Maria?
Yes, and there are tools that are really helpful for tasks like if you want to ask a PDF something, it can have a reply, but then you'll need to recheck it whether it's not been taken out of context. That is quite good because you can also go and look at the references that have been cited in that part of the text, in that part of the manuscript, and further confirm what's been said. I particularly like the ask a PDF thing.
We'll come on to that in a moment. The judicious use of AI, judicious being the key word, can help you to improve the quality of your work. And we put this little bit of a timeline in here. I don't know about you, Maria, but I am old enough to remember actually going to a library and looking at what had just come out in the library in my field that week. I used to go to the library once a week when I was doing my PhD. How about you?
Well, there was PubMed already, but it was in its infancy. So the thing about having to always recheck yourself is that you can go and look up things online and you can ask for references, but then you'll have to reconfirm them. So it was always good, especially for older references that I had to use a lot. I had to go and request the full text that wasn't available online, and that was in the library.
So I think we're at the point really, and the kind of yellow and blue boxes at the end of this particular flowchart. But now we're using AI to dramatically speed up that literature search component of the research process. In particular, we're going to go round this wheel in a minute, as I mentioned, give you some ideas of what's out there, what's available, what you can use, what you can try, some of the pros and cons, the pluses and minuses of the different tools around the wheel for researchers. But not all of it today, Maria. We don't have time to go through all of it, right?
No, we're focusing mainly on things that you can do at your desk, which is where AI can actually help you. It can't really help you with lab work yet. And we will devote a whole different session to data synthesis and analysis, because that requires a different set of preparation and a different mindset. So today we're talking about literature search, writing, editing, so focusing on the introduction discussion part of your manuscript.
And we'll be bringing in some special guests, we hope, for that next episode. Darko, if you're listening, I think it might be a how do you solve a problem with a Darko and Maria, because I'm a dusty old geologist. I don't really have much in the way of expertise when it comes to data synthesis and data collection. They used to call my field of research coloring in when I was doing my PhD. But let's get started. Like, what do researchers think about AI? What do researchers think about the use of AI in its most obvious use case? And that's helping with the writing and translation of a research paper. If you go out and ask researchers what would be the number one way that you would use AI in your day-to-day work, I bet you they would say helping me write the paper or helping me translate my native language into English, putting the research paper together. But as this recent survey from Nature, and it came out just the week before last, shows, it's not actually as clear-cut as you might think. Right, Maria?
Yes, there are still a lot of people that think it's not appropriate ever to use AI to draft different sections of a paper. And I think it is really helpful to use the tools that you know that you can trust. And that's why we're going to talk about some of them later on. And to use it judiciously, like you said, and to always go back and recheck. So don't use the output of a tool as your result. It is an output like a measurement in a lab is an output. You will have to look at it and interpret it if you want to put it in a manuscript. You will have to go around and recheck it. You will have to probably repolish it. It's always good to disclose that you've used some of these tools and how these tools have been put together, have been made. It's a good thing that they are transparent in the way that they tell you how they process the work, so that you can know and so that you can stand behind what you're writing, because it is going to be your name, not AI, who's going to be the author.
I mean, have a look at this. We'll give you the link in the chat a little bit later. Is it okay for AI to write science papers? A Nature survey shows that researchers are split. Have a look at those red bars. Like, those are researchers that say never appropriate to use AI. And what they're asking in this particular question, a researcher uses AI to write the different sections of a research paper and then edits those sections themselves. And you'll see that big proportions of the researchers surveyed, I think about 5,000 researchers in this survey, are saying that it's never appropriate. More than half, 56%, never appropriate to use AI to write your method section, your results section, 66%. So even though we might think that we're in an era where we can do almost everything with AI. We can really use it to speed up our research, make our work, our day-to-day work better, more efficient, more accurate, as you saw on that first slide that we showed a moment ago. Many researchers are not that into it. Translation, a different story, as you can see on the right-hand side here. Many people are keen on translation, but writing, not so much. Right, Maria?
I think a lot of that is that within that question, they said that the researcher didn't disclose that they used AI. I think it is still something that people are expected to disclose within the way that you write and the way that you put together a scientific paper. Much in the same way that you disclose what software you used for statistics, what machine you use to measure whatever it was. It's a tool. Like any other tool, it's going to be fallible, and it's going to have error, and you're going to have to take that into consideration whenever you're writing a manuscript and interpreting your results.
So publishers, if you're listening to this, where are the guidelines? Where's the coherency? Where's the unified set of guidelines to help researchers understand what they could, what they should, and what they can't be doing with AI? Apart from writing, maybe to start with, one of our number one situations where you might use an AI tool would be, as Maria mentioned a little bit earlier, to find literature, to search the literature. Pre and post AI, it's a little bit easier these days, right, Maria?
Yes, because you can see connections that are not always readily apparent. So if you're still basing your search on Boolean operators, that means that you have keywords and then you're putting them together, you're excluding bits of it, and you get a result that is kind of a mishmash. Different sets of papers that you're not quite sure how they relate to each other, how they can be put together to string the story that you want to tell of the research gap that you found. You're not entirely sure whether you found a research gap or not. So these are the ways that some of these tools, because they interlink papers together, can help you out. You can get different opinions, contrasting opinions. You can get summaries from PDFs in a language that is more up to standards and understandable to people whose English is not the first language. You can get citation context. So whenever you have, for instance, you're citing from the methods section of a paper, you don't have to go through everything that the paper says to figure out whether the method you use is appropriate or not. And that will help you out. And also to identify different databases. There's a couple of very big ones, but then there is a lot of subject-specific databases that have been maintained by universities, by institutes, by projects, and those can be relevant.
But I don't think there's any reason to be rude, though. Boolean? How dare you? We've put on this slide the 5 top, or the 5 leading, I should say, and no endorsement from us. We're not taking any payments or backhanders from these tools. But do have a look. Everyone's familiar with ChatGPT. You can use it for keyword searching. Very, very easy. But do have a look at Elicit, Consensus, Scholastic, and Cite. These are the 4 top tools that are out there at the moment for doing literature searching. Again, no endorsement. Just have a look. You can get yourself a free trial of any of these tools really, really easily. Have a go. They're out there. They're useful, very useful for literature searching. So do have a look at those tools in particular. So here's a bit of a summary. Step 1, literature search. How does it work, Maria? Specialized scientific AI-based search engines. We've listed a number of them here on this slide.
So it's going to exclude literature that has not been appropriately peer-reviewed, or it's going to tell you that the literature has not been peer-reviewed. It's going to, so it's not going to, like, the new AI from Google, bring everything together from sources you're not really sure are trustworthy. So it's going to bring together different sources. It's going to link them in a coherent narrative. And then you're going to be able to figure out where you're going to want to go with your search. You can specialize, focus on something that you found interesting, or you're going to have to step aside and figure out whether you have a gap in knowledge, you have a gap in population, whether you have something that the literature hasn't covered, something that has been forgotten and now being revived because of renewed interest in a area, in a search, in a method. Those search engines are going to be more up to date and up to speed with what's going on because they have access that is not always public. So you know that a lot of the scientific literature is still behind a paywall, and some of these engines, whenever, if you buy subscriptions or something, will get you at least the knowledge that those things exist.
Maria's a little bit younger than me, but when I was doing my PhD and starting my project way back in the midst of time, the biggest problem at the start of the project was identifying what we call a knowledge gap, as Maria has talked about already. And that's where you start discovering what's been done before, what you might spend your time working on as a research student to be productive, to generate something useful. And that, for a long time, for decades, for generations, was really the main stumbling block at the outset of a research project. Now, you can see we've listed 8 of the key tools. Sorry, I can't count. 10 of the key tools here on this slide. You could use any of these to do that work for you. Put in the information that you want to learn about, the keywords that you want to search for, the questions that you are addressing as a student, as a researcher. These tools will tell you about knowledge gaps. They'll give you literature. They'll tell you about how the literature is linked together in a range of different mind maps and so on. So do have a look and do have a go. Questions to ask. Where's the consensus? What kinds of issues are you going to be addressing with these tools? Maria.
So in any field, you're going to want to figure out how you can get work to be efficient. So the biggest, the most impactful output with the least amount of work. Academics are always looking for ways to shortcuts and to do the least work possible for the minimum effort for maximum output. So it's good to know that you have some help and that you have assistance in doing a big chunk of work that was boring, that wasn't really fully automated, and that you need to do at the outset whenever you're not fully up to speed with all the tools that can help you. So because it's the beginning of your research project, when you're trying to conduct the more profound literature search to find what's not out there, it's really important that you know how to look, because you're looking for something that does not exist. You're looking for a gap, right? So you're looking for something that you yourself are going to create. So it is important to know how to navigate different tools and different search engines and what to trust. So you can ask PDFs, you can ask the references within PDFs, you can organize them with AI tools, you can cite them properly with AI tools, and you can also find versions and compare articles on which tools they use, which methods they use, what were their results. You can contrast. It's always good to have at the outset, for instance, a table of things, of topics, and whether different authors in your field that you respect, what they think, what they found, what they published about them. So it's a good way also to organize your mind. It's like mind map, but for bigger, bigger and bigger. instead of having something in your wall or in your lab that you're linking together like you're a serial killer, you just have an online tool, and you can have maps, and you can try and you can organize all your references in subjects, and then you know when you're going to have to cite knowledge that you learn from each of those piles of papers that you now don't have to print out.
I used to know a guy that when he started a research project, he'd photocopy all of the papers that he needed for that research project, and he'd end up with a pile. You could tell how far into a research project he was by the size of the pile of paper next to his desk. We've summarized 5 of the tools here, or rather Razia summarized 5 of the tools here. Shout out again to our good friend Razia. What questions are you going to be asking? And then some information about each of these tools specifically for searching literature. So do have a look at this. Do take a screenshot of this. It's very, very useful information, especially if you're starting a research project and you're thinking about using AI to help you at that initial literature searching stage. Literature mapping, as Maria has just been saying, very, very important, because as papers get younger, as research material gets more recent in the literature, you're going to have to spend more time searching. Why is that? Well, there's just more and more literature being published every year. So back in 2009, maybe there was 1/3 of the number of papers in your field being published every year that there are now. It's incredible. I think 30,000, 40,000 papers a month are published just in the medical and health sciences, Maria.
It's a lot. It's a lot to get through. You can't trust everything you read, and you're going to have to be smart in the way that you filter your data. If you have too general of a search term, you're going to end up with 30,000 papers, and nobody's going to want to read through all that. And probably also because they're not relevant. You are going to end up with a project that's going to focus on a research gap so tiny that it's not going to be important or relevant for you to cite everything that's out there. You may want to know, to have a broad idea of what's out there, but it's not going to be relevant to your project. And to cite irrelevant references is one of the pet peeves of most reviewers, and one that can get you into very bad shape with editors, because they will think that you don't know what you're talking about, that you're citing irrelevant references, that you're in a citation ring, for instance, just because the author is your friend from the paper that you're citing. So it is always good to be incredibly resilient and go through and iterate on your search. Go through and redo your literature search, and if have alerts pinging on your email, on your phone, it's all of these tools are good to get to a point where you only have 1 or 2 papers a month that you're going to have to read to keep up to speed.
We've talked about lots of things on this series so far, but one episode you might wish to skip back to if you're listening to this now or in the future is our episode about writing review papers. We have talked about that. We have talked also about the difference in that episode, and we'll link to it in the comments to this video. Why it's important to understand the difference between doing a literature review, doing literature mapping, as we're talking about here, and writing a review paper. And what's important to remember, of course, is that this process, this literature mapping process, does not necessarily translate into a literature review that you can write as a researcher. So do skip back through the playlist, have a look at that one as well. What about reading and note-taking, Maria? The other major use case that we want to talk about in this presentation. I'm sounding like a marketing person using these phrases. Another way that researchers might wish to use AI.
So what did you do? How did you note take from the papers that you read in the golden years when you went to the library? Did you do photocopies of
Yeah,
publish,
I used to photocopy. Yeah, absolutely. I did a
and
lot
take
of that.
notes on the margins?
I did, yeah. No, I did, yeah. And
And then you ended up with a pile of paper.
I have a massive pile of paper. Yeah, I still have
Um,
box files filled with literature. It's crazy.
yeah. So I don't, because I jumped a lot in life, but I did at a time, especially of papers that weren't available online, like 1970, whatever it was, when the first model of was, and I had to go back and look at concepts that I didn't know. So I had a notebook where I had notes on things and subjects in banners. It was very organized. I had little color coded things for what I'm going to talk about in sprouting, what I'm going to talk about in permeability, how I'm going to talk about all of the things that I wanted to talk about and that my research led to. Um, you may have a whole thing, a whole subject area that you're going to talk about, which is to do with how a process like inflammation impacts on your ability to digest. For instance, if you're a biomedical scientist, you may want to take notes on very, very specific topics like a cytokine. And where are you going to find all of those? So you're going to have to take notes about everything you learn and have the citations. Don't have a notebook, because then you can lose it.
But you
It
might be
depends
learning
how.
more if you're writing things in a notebook. Don't you think you might be learning more? And
You
stop
may.
using words I don't understand. Cytokine? Boolean? I'm getting so confused in this event today.
So yeah, using a notebook can be very good and it can help you learn, but if you trust it alone, then you may lose everything. So have a tool where you gather all that together, that's somewhere in the cloud, and that you're not going to lose, that you're not going to lose if your computer crashes, that you're not going to lose if your house burns down, because that's the last thing you want.
Let's talk quickly about writing and editing. We had some ideas there about note taking. There are many, many, many ways that researchers can use these LLMs and other AI tools for writing and editing. We just wanted to mention a few. Paperpal, Jenny, SciSpace are the three. Wordvice has a great one too, I would say. Like those key players in terms of writing an article. Maria?
Editing is one of the most annoying things that you have to do once you're ready to publish a paper. You may have forgotten what you wanted to talk about in the first place whenever you first started months before. So you're going to have to make your text consistent if you have multiple authors. You're going to have to make it understandable to people across subfields and across areas. It's really, really good to go through once and have an AI tool read your paper and tell you what they've learned from it and what they understand from it. Because if AI can't understand, then nobody can understand. It is good to also figure out if you're being understood properly. There's no misinterpretation and or misconception that is so obvious to you that you forgot to explain. So it is particularly good whenever you write in a language that's not your own, you get it to translate, and then you get it to edit in a way that is academic sounding. It is sometimes inappropriate to use some words in academic manuscripts because of convention and because they mean something else. But in your own language, you may use something different, and that a tool like this will help you make the language sound natural and make you yourself understand back what you wrote better.
What we've done on these slides, if you're listening back to this or you're looking at these slides in the future, put some workflows on here for note taking, as you saw on the previous slide. Here's a workflow for writing and editing. It's just one suggested workflow. Of course, there are many, but do have a look, because these, as Maria said, tools will really, really help, as we've talked about in this event today, speed up and make things better. And we don't have much time. We only keep you for half an hour in these mini LinkedIn Live events, Sci-Train mini LinkedIn Live events. If you've enjoyed this and you'd like more from us, do jump on over to scitrain.com. Do learn more about what we're doing, who we're working with, all of the different publishers now that we're working with to help researchers understand the publishing process, get their papers written more effectively, including the use of AI. And we'll be back next time with more on this. But for now, it's time to say, Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a fantastic day. And yeah, see you next time when we solve more problems.
Bye.